Hello everyone, welcome to this video. So in this video we will be building a full e-commerce website with most of the features you would need for an online store, including products, categories listing, product section, product details, cart, wish list, checkout, rating, and more. Basically all the important features you would need for an e-commerce platform. We will be using Next.js 13, which introduces the app directory. This includes support for layouts, server components, streaming, and support for data fetching as well. So the introduction of app directory in Next.js 13 is meant to improve routing and layout experience. We will also use Sanity.io as our headless CMS, which means we don't have to set up any databases and actual backend to store our data. With Sanity, we will create our schema just the way we want, and that is basically it. So you see how it is easy to create and fetch data into our project using Sanity. And by the way, if you want to learn more about Sanity and Sanity Studio, I have a Sanity tutorials where I teach you everything you need to know about Sanity version 3 and how to make queries using Grok, which is exactly what we will be using to fetch our data into our app. You see the video pop up at the top right in the description below, so yeah, check it out. The most exciting thing about this project is that we will embed Sanity Studio in our project, which means that in our project we have both the admin and user side. So we will use just the website URL, just like what we have here, msby.netlify.app. I will host it on Netlify. So we will use this URL, and then when we go to /studio, which I'll show you very shortly, you would see the admin side, and then we also have the user side, which is this one. Right. So we will be able to have access to our admin side, and this is very cool. And by the way, don't worry about authentication for our admin side, because Sanity gives that to us out of the box. So we will have a full working admin side with secure authentication as well. We will be using Chakra UI, which is a simple and accessible components library, which will help us build our component and style them very easily. You will see how Chakra UI will help us create our component faster. Chakra UI is themable, it is highly customizable, and I would say they have a very good documentation as well, so be sure to check it out. So at this point, let me give you a proper demo of the project so that we start coding. Alright, so as you can see, I am on the home page now, and the first thing you can see is the navigation bar at the top here. So when I click on this one, it's going to take me to home, which is where I am at the moment. This will take me to all products, categories. This is where I also search for products. Here I can see the items I add to wishlist, and this is my cart as well. Now when you come here, I have a listing for top categories. We can click on any of these to show us the products under these categories. When you come down to, there are some best deals. I am using Swiper.js to create these slides. Swiper.js is actually a modern touch slider that is very easy to use. Yeah, I'm using Swiper.js for this kind of behavior. I can navigate back and forth. Same for the others as well. So I have selling product, trending product as well. And then at the bottom, I have the footer which has some links. When I click on all products, for example, it takes me to all products page. So here I see all the products I have. I am implementing pagination, so see that we have 3 pages for these products listing. So when I go to the next page, I see the next set of items, the next set of products. And then when I click on categories, I can also see the button here. So when I click on categories, I get all the categories I have, all the product categories: men's clothing, shoes, bags, watches, and other ones, right? So for example, if I click on electronics, there is a breadcrumb here showing you the category you are on. So electronics, and these are all the products under electronics. If I go back to all categories as well, and yeah, maybe I choose women's clothing as well, I see the same thing. If I want to add this product to my wish list, I just click on this hat icon, which means I have added it to my wish list, and you'd see that it is highlighted. The wish list count is also gone to 1. If I click on it, you'd see this product. I can add it to cart as well. Add this to cart, add this to wish list, and then it also shows the rating, which I am using a very simple package to build this rating. I'll show you. So I have some items in the cart. When I open the cart, I see that there are 2 items here. There is the total being calculated down here. So for example, 56 and 54 is actually 110. So if I increase the 56 to 2, then the total is calculated also. It goes up. And then I can click on checkout. On the checkout page, I see the items that I am trying to buy. You see the quantity for this one is 2. This is 1. This is the price. And this is your delivery information. And here, if you have a coupon code, you would enter it here. Here is payment option. You can choose cash on delivery, mobile money payment, or credit card. I've not integrated an actual payment gateway yet. Yeah, the only part which is missing in this e-commerce application is an actual payment integration. So you can see here it calculates everything for you if you have including the discount. These are dynamic values I'm getting based on the tax because you're not entering an actual code here. But yeah, just to show you the concept, when you enter a coupon code here, you would calculate based on that, and then you would have your discount. This is the amount you're going to pay. So based on the payment option you select, you click on pay, and then you would pay using that payment option. Now if I go back to categories, if I go back to products and I click on one of these products, it shows me the product details as well. So there is a breadcrumb here as well, and it also shows that this product is actually added to wish list. So if I click on it, it is going to remove that from wish list, and you see the count is now 1. If I click on it again, it's going to increase it. Count is now 2. Here you see the name of the product, the description, the rating, the price. You can also increase the quantity from here, and then you can actually click on buy from here as well. It's going to go to the checkout page without product. You see the quantity is 2, and then you can go through the checkout process and make a payment. Let me go back here. And I also want to show you the search feature. So maybe if I want to search for maybe men's clothing or whatever, I can just enter anything I want, and it's going to give me some items. It's going to give me some products based on the name of the product. I can click on any of this product, for example this, to take me to that product, and then I can see these are also other pictures of the products. From here, I can add to cart as well. Go back to the home page, and then yeah, when you click on this shop now too, it's going to take you to products page. So yeah, the next part I want to show you is the admin side. Alright, so we also have the admin side. When I go to studio, it is going to log me in directly, and I see this is my admin side. I have the categories, products, and then featured products. And here I can click to go back home or view all the products. We are going to see how we can customize Sanity Studio that we embed in our application to have these links, right? Which is very cool. Which also means you could have some kind of usage metrics going on here, as well as like how you'd add your data and all that. Yeah, so based on the idea, you can customize it just the way you want. And you could see that I am still sticking to the theme of my application with my primary colors, as you can see in Sanity Studio. So we would also customize the Sanity Studio theme to add our own colors. For example, if I click on this, you see that I'm having my brand colors here as well. If I click on a category and I click here, here I can edit my category. So there's a watches category, the slide, and then image. I can make the edit here and then update it by clicking publish. And then when I click on product, I can see all my products here. So So these are the products I have. I can click on a product and you would see the product details. So here, from here, I can edit the details as I want, and I'll click on these categories as well. You would see the category information it belongs to. We're going to see how we build our Sanity schema to have a look like this, basically. So in Sanity Studio, you can also search for like products you want. So maybe I can say watch or something. It has a very powerful search engine. And then here is where you also make sample queries. For example, this to see like the kind of data which is going to be presented to your front end. So do all the filtering here, you test it here, and then you can copy this code and then put it in your front end application using the Sanity clients library. If I try to log in on a different account which is not logged in, I've actually logged in on this browser. So when I visit this page, it logs me in automatically because I am the admin. If I try to log in with a different account, as I am going to show you, just want to show you the authentication part. So for example, I have this browser and I want to try and log in. So as you can see, it is asking me to provide my login information. So if I am the admin, I can choose to log in with whichever account I used. So we have the Google, GitHub, and then you can use email and password. So it gives us authentication out of the box without having to worry about authentication for admin side. This website is fully responsive. It is mobile responsive, right? So if I try to show you the mobile version of this website, you'd see everything is working perfectly. We have the top categories, the product, and here you can navigate as well, go back and forth using the slider. You can click here to go to all products, view all categories as well. Click on one of the categories like watches. I see all the products under watches. When I click on wish list, I see the wish list as well. So from here, I can delete an item from wish list or clear all the items from wish list. Same with checkout. Sorry, carts. I can clear the carts. I can also go to checkout by clicking on this, and here I see the summary of the products, delivery information, and this is the payment options. So on mobile, everything is working perfectly, everything is working fine. So this is fully responsive, and you'd see how Chakra UI is going to make this look very, very easy to do. Click on homepage. And there you go. I can also search for items like shoe. There you go. Click on one of these, see the details, and everything looks perfect. We have a lot to cover, so let's just jump straight into the code and start building this website. Okay, so I have my IDE opened, and I'm going to create a new Next.js app using npx create next app. I'll do at latest, and then when I hit enter, it is going to create a new Next.js app for me by asking me a few questions. What is the name of your app? I'm going to call this MS Buy. I'll add 2 because I already have MS Buy. So MS Buy 2. Do I want to use TypeScript? Yes. ESLint, I would say yes. Would you like to use the SRC directory? In this case, I'm going to say yes to use the SRC directory, but it is not actually needed. You can decide to use it. You can decide not to use it. All right. So I'll just say yes for this one, and it is asking me if I would like to use the experimental app directory. That's the main point. So we want to use the app directory. What import alias would you like to configure? I would do the default one, which is fine. We would edit that later. So it is initializing the project for me with TypeScript, ESLint, and then Next.js. We would wait for this to finish, and then we would also install Chakra UI and Sanity. Alright, so as you can see, this is done installing. I can do cd ms by 2, and then I can open this in Visual Studio Code. So code dot. Alright, so I have my new project opened in Visual Studio Code now, and we can look at the file structure. So because I use the SRC directory, I have a parent SRC directory, and then when I open the SRC directory, I have the app. Inside app, I have the API folder, which is having this hello, and then routes.ts. We're not going to be using the API folder. So there is this files in the app directory. So the first one is page.tsx. When you create a new Next.js page, you would name it page.tsx. So for example, if you want to go to the about page, you would create an about folder inside app directory, and then we would create page.tsx inside about. And when we go to /about, it is going to navigate us to about page. So this is one of the changes we have in Next.js now. All your pages are going to be in page.tsx if you are using the app directory. I mean, you still have the options to use the pages folder. I can create the pages folder inside SRC and still use my normal file names like about.tsx and stuff like that, right? But if you want to use the app directory, we will be creating our pages this way. Now we also have page.module.css. If you want to add CSS, this hasn't changed. The way we add CSS to any component or any page in Next.js is by creating a .module.css file. We also have the layouts.tsx. This is going to contain the layout of our pages. So you can see this children. This is basically going to render all our children, which is the pages. And then there is the global.css2 for like global styles. We can now start removing some of the things we don't need. So for example, we are not going to use the API folder, so we can delete that. I would also delete my CSS files because I will be using Chakra, so there's no need for any CSS files at all. So I'll delete my CSS files, delete this one, delete page.module.css as well. And then when I go to page, I will remove the imports for styles. In fact, I'm going to clear everything in this file, so I won't need the font import, so I'll get rid of that as well. And I'm only going to add an h1 hello next just to make things running. Save this. I'll go to layouts, and I am going to remove the global imports for CSS, and then I'm going to leave this here for now, but I am going to change this one to say ms by. It's going to be online shopping made easy. I think this is all we need to do for the cleanup. We have next.config.js. We also have our tsconfig with the paths we actually specify. We would actually add one more a bit later. But for now, let's try and run the app to see if everything is working. So if I open package.json development, I can do npm run dev, and this is going to start the development build. If I want to start the production build, I can do npm run build and then npm run start. So npm run dev. Open this in my browser. Actually bring that here. Alright, so we can see our app started correctly with no errors. I can see hello next, and if I check the console, there are no errors in the console as well, which means our app is started correctly. One thing I noticed is that with development, Next.js 13 can be a bit slower. You might see it running a bit slower than usual, but in production it is actually quite very fast. So yeah, probably you might want to bear with me. Like for the development, it could sometimes be a bit slower. Our app is started successfully. It is running, so we are going to install Chakra UI and Sanity and set those up as well. So I'll keep the app running, open a new terminal here, and I'm going to install Chakra UI. So I have the Chakra UI documentation here. When I go to get started, I go to framework guides, Next.js. So this one shows you how to install it for Next.js. I can copy this command, npm install all these, and then come and paste that here. I'm going to hit enter, and when I go back to the site, the rest of the setup is actually there, right? Initially, when we have the pages, it was in _app.js. Right now we have the app directory. This is the setup we are going to be using, so we would have to add the use client here. All Next.js components or all Next.js pages are by default server components. So if you want to make it a client component, you have to use the use client here at the top. So basically, in our layout component, we are going to add the cache provider, Chakra provider here, wrap it around the children, and then that will basically be it. So with this one, they created a providers.tsx file and then passed the children, and they pass the providers up here. But yeah, we can still put this one inside the layouts.tsx and we should still be fine. This is also how to customize the theme, which I'm going to show you. So Chakra UI is installed, so let's just go ahead and then set it up as we saw. So inside layouts.tsx here, I'm going to import Chakra provider and cache provider from Chakra UI as we saw. So I can go to the site again, go up here, copy the import together with the use client. So let me not forget that. So I'm going to paste that at the top here. So cache provider is coming from Chakra UI Next.js, so I need to install that as well. So I'm going to do npm install. So Next.js is basically using this to do some caching behind the scenes. They recommended we install that. Of course, we've converted this to a client component. We are not allowed to do this metadata, so I'm going to get rid of this as well. I am going to save this, go here, make sure it is compiled successfully, and then check my app to see it is running fine, which is running. So I have this error in my console, which is an error relating to an extension I've installed in Chrome, which is giving me this error. If you normally see this error with your Next.js app, or like if you see it in this project, it is not an actual error coming with our Next.js project. It is basically because we have an extension installed. So yeah, let's not worry about these ones. We have Chakra UI installed. You see here, copy this. So let's bring this down again. This one, this is supposed to be in the body, not outside the body. Cache provider, save this to that format. And now if I try to check my application, I can see that the font is now changed here, which means our Chakra UI is actually working. So it's picked the font from Chakra UI. So the next thing we are going to do is we're going to customize the Chakra UI theme. What we will do is inside SRC, not inside app, but inside SRC, we would add a new file, and I'm going to call it theme.ts like this. With Chakra UI, for example, if I use like the box components like this, if I try to import that and I try to do color, So I can do gray dot 100, which is going to give me like a light gray color. I want to use my brand colors, but I want to be able to do something like brand dot primary like this, and then it's going to use my brand colors, right? So we would have to customize the Chakra UI theme to add our own brand colors, and that's what we are going to be doing. So let me remove this one, and then also remove the import on it as well. So first of all, I'm going to export a constant called colors, and I'm going to add brand here as an object. So inside brand, I have my primary color, which is basically going to be an HSL color. I'm going to copy this 3 times, and I would have the light and the dark version. So with the light version, I'm going to increase the percentage here, the lightness to 70, for example. It's going to be a bit lighter. And then with the dark, I'm going to decrease the lightness to 50. Alright, so this is going to be my brand colors. The next thing is I'm going to extend from the Chakra UI theme using the extend theme function. So I need to import extend theme from Chakra UI React, export const theme, which I'm going to use the extend theme function here. It's supposed to be a function with an object. Then the only thing I'm going to extend for now is the colors, which is going to use the colors up here. So this is going to extend the theme. It is going to add my colors to the Chakra UI colors we have already. When I come to my layouts for the Chakra provider, I can do theme, and then I can now import the theme from theme. I'll save that so we can now start using our brand colors. So as I mentioned earlier, if I go to tsconfig, I have the path, this pointing to /src folder, and then everything inside the src folder. I'm going to add another one to it so that if it is outside the src folder, we can still use the @import to import that, right? Everything is still working fine. If I want to test that my brand colors are working, for now I can put a use client here just to convert this to a client component, because I'm going to use a Chakra UI component here. I'll say box, for example, with the hello world. I'm going to say bg color. If you want to define the background color of an element, you do bg color, and I can do brand dot primary, for example. When I save it and go back here, after it's done refreshing, my background is changed to my brand color, which means our theme is working. Cool. We can start using Chakra UI components. I'm just going to undo this because our homepage is going to be a server component. That's just to test if our theme is working with Chakra UI. So I'm going to get rid of the use client here. We want to install Sanity as well, so that we have all our packages we want to use installed already. So I'll just go back here and I'm going to install Sanity. So I'm going to do npm install Sanity, and then I also need to install Next Sanity for Next.js. I'll wait a few seconds for this to install. I am also going to install the rest of the packages we are going to be using. So I will be using Swiper.js. So I'm going to do npm install Swiper. I am also going to use React icons. So I'd install that as well. For the ratings, I am going to use this package called React Stars. So let me install that as well. Installed Sanity Vision. So this is a plugin from Sanity that we are going to use to run our query samples in Sanity Studio. So I want to install that as well. And lastly, I am going to install Mountain hooks. So I'm going to use the pagination hook to create our pagination, to build our pagination for our product. I'm going to hit enter to install all these dependencies for me, and then I can go ahead and start creating my components. Alright, so I'm going to start creating my components. So inside SRC, I am going to create my components folder. So I have components, and this is where all my components are going to go. And one thing to take note of is that all files in the components folder are also going to be server-side components. So everything you create inside the components folder, everything you create inside app folder are server-side components. If you want to use them as client-side components, just add the use clients up there. I'm going to keep the original app opened here so that we use it as reference. You could see that from the original application, the heading is ms by, and then there is this cat icon at the side here, right? So I'm going to add a header with a link for the favicon icon. Inside the HTML, just like we add like title and meta in regular HTML, I am going to have the title be ms by. Let me just say 2 for differences with the original one, and I'm going to say meta. And with the meta, you can specify some description for your application, right? So this is going to be a description, and then the content for the description is going to be, I'll just say buy anything online. You can put whatever you like there. And with the icon, I'm going to use the link icon. This is going to be an icon. Add a type here as well, type, and this is going to be an image slash png because it's going to be a png icon. We specify the sizes as well. So it is going to be 32 by 32, and then the href, I'm going to be using some images. So I'm going to use like these images. So all the images I'm going to use as placeholders. So this is the icon I'm going to be using, which is called shopping cart. So let me just copy these images and put it in the public directory. So I have my images here, and this is the one I want, shoppingcart.png. So because it is in a public folder, so I can just put a name there without having to do any slash. This is supposed to change now, so I have ms by 2, which means the name has changed but the icon isn't changed yet. For some reason it is still there. So let me see why it is still there. This is supposed to be inside the head. I don't know why I forgot. So let me put this inside the head, so just to tell the HTML that this is supposed to be a header information. Alright, so yeah, let's just move on. Let's not worry about this icon yet. We might see why it's not showing yet later. So let's just move on and create our first component, which is the header component. So I'm going to collapse this, going to close this files. I think I will need the layout, so let me keep the layout open here. But I'll go to the components and I'll create a folder. I'm going to call this Navbar. Inside the Navbar component, I'm going to have a file called navbar.tsx. I'm going to have other files as well. I'm going to use this React snippet to generate my component. Now I'm going to use the box component from Chakra UI. Box is basically like a div. So I can just say box, which is behind the scenes, a div. Import that from Chakra UI React. So this is going to have a position. I can just do position with a shorthand property from Chakra by doing POS, and the position is going to be fixed because it is not going to move. I'm going to make the width 100% by using W, and I would also use BG color. It is going to be pure white. I will do margin bottom, give it 1 rem, and I will also do a Z index, and it is going to be 10 just to keep it on top. So let me just put navigation here just to make sure this is working. I'm going to save this. When I come to the layout here, so I want the navbar to always appear on top of all my pages. So this is where I am going to use it. I'm going to import it from src components navbar, right? And notice that you see the art here on the import instead of having to go // components and all that. Just import from src components and the navbar.tsx. So there you go, I have my navigation component showing up. So usually this is how you're going to be defining the styles on a Chakra component. But if I have like multiple components, I like to move this into a file, a separate file. So I'm going to create a TypeScript file. It is going to be a TypeScript file. I'll call it style.ts, and this is going to contain all the Chakra UI styles I'm going to have for the components that are going to be in this Navbar folder, right? So I will show you how I do it. So I'm going to cut all these and I'm going to put it here. So I'm going to create a constant, and this is going to be Navbar styles, which is going to be an object. Because I'm using Chakra UI, I can import the types, right? So this is basically a box prop, just to give it a type, so that whatever I define here will be a valid box property. I'm replacing the equal to signs with colon because it is an object. So properties are basically objects, and I have to put commas in between them. This can now be a number without the curly braces. Alright, so this is how I am going to be defining my styles, my Chakra styles. So I have a file called style.tsx, and then I'm going to be defining my props here, and then I can just import it here. So I can just do ... import this. So now what style is going to come from here. I have to make sure I am exporting this so that I can import that here, and then I can use it here like this. Alright, so this makes my component look simpler instead of having a lot of styles. So if I have like a long list of styles defined here, it's going to make my component look very, very long. So I prefer to have it defined in styles just to separate concerns, and then I can import them like this. As you can see from the main application, it is responsive. If I try to shrink it like this, it moves to the mobile version, and then if I make it long, for example like this, it changes to the desktop version. So with the desktop version, navigation menus are here, the search field is here, we have this wish list and cut. But when it changes to the mobile version, I have this button with a hamburger icon here, which is showing the navigation menus at the side here, and I have the title and then a wish list, and you could see the search field is also come down here, right? So the way I did this is I created two separate components for desktop navigation and mobile navigation, so that I can just switch between those. So let me show you how I did it. Inside Navbar, I am going to create another file, and I'm going to call it mobile nav.tsx. I'm going to create another one which is going to be called desktop nav.tsx, and we are going to try and do the desktop one first. So I'm going to generate using the snippet, and here I'm going to use a flex container. So these are displayed flex, and I will group them. There's a flex container from Chakra UI. I can have the styles, all the styles I want defined here, but I am going to add it here instead. I'm going to say export desktop nav styles. I need to add a constant here, and because it is a flex component, I need to make sure it is a flex props. This is the right one. I'm going to say justify space between, So you see I have the suggestions here too because I have the flex props type imported. I'm going to have space between for the search field and the navigation menu at one side, and then the wish list and cart at the other side. I would have a line. So because it is a flex prop, I'm able to use the shorthand property. Instead of saying justify content, I can just say justify. Instead of saying align items, I can just say align. I'm going to the center, padding x. It's not equal to, supposed to be colon. So padding x is going to be 2 rem. I'll do the same for padding y, but it's going to be 1 py. Bring the comma here, and I am also going to do a border. Just add some borderline at the bottom. So border button is going to be 1 pixel. Border button width, and then border color is going to be gray. Dot 200. I'm going to import desktop nav styles. Let me display that. I am going to add stack. So stack is basically for stacking items, right? Either horizontally or vertically. So it also acts basically as a flex box, right? So you could define the direction of your stack. But yeah, I want to use stack instead of flex box because I'm using flex box at the top here. So the stack is going to contain these ones. So it's going to contain the logo, the navigation menus, and then the search field. And then we can have one for this too as well. So first of all, I'm going to add some box. So this is going to be a placeholder. So let me just import. So I'm going to have 3 items. This is going to be the logo. This is going to be the nav items. This is going to be the search. And then we can have another one, which is basically going to be 2, and one is going to be the wish list, and then the other one is going to be the cart. I come to Navbar, and instead of just this, I am going to do import desk top nav, import that, and then I am going to save this. So if I come here, I should see that this is changed now, right? So by default, stack is vertical, so from top to down. So I can change the direction. When I come here, for this one, I'm going to say the direction is row. I'm going to have a gap. The gap is going to be 6. I'm going to have a flex of 1 just to make it fill the rest of the space after the items at the end. I'm also going to define align items just to make sure they are centered like this. And this is what I'm going to have for the styles. So I'm going to now cut this and then send it to where I have the styles, right? So if I save it and I now import that here instead, logo section styles, import that. I'm going to import that, and then I'm going to have the same thing. This time it's going to be cut section styles. It's going to be dot. Copy this, add that here, and I'm going to copy this. Direction is going to be row. This is going to be cut section style. Direction is going to be row, and then I am going to add spacing, which is going to be 2. So we have our navigation layout setup, and it's looking very cool. So we're going to build our logo and then our navigation menus. It is now time to work on our logo. So this is the logo. It's just a text with different colors for the by and the ms. So we're going to create our component. So inside components, I'm going to create a simple file. It's going to be logo.tsx. I'm going to call it app logo. So let me rename this to app logo, and then let me change this one as well. Say app logo. Alright, and here I'm going to have a simple text, and I'm going to have ms by here, and this by is going to be in a separate. It's going to have a separate text element around it. I'm going to turn that into a span, so I can just say as span. So Chakra UI gives this as property. It allows you to turn like a component into a different element. So for example, I want to turn this text component into a span, but I still want to have the ability to be able to style this using the text props. So the only thing I'm going to have for this one is say color, which is going to be brand.primary. So we are using our primary brand color to color the by, but the default one is going to be gray 800, which is deep gray, almost dark. And then I would also have to make sure the font width is bold. So because this is a very simple component, I'm not going to put these in a different styles. I will just keep them here because it's very simple. Some of the components that are very simple, which for example like 2 properties for the styles, yeah, I'll just keep them here instead of breaking them into like a separate component. That is still okay. So I will save this, and this is going to be my logo. So when I come to the desktop nav, I'm now going to replace with app logo, and then I'm going to save it. When I check, so ms by, there is no space here though, so I'm going to add that space here. So I'll go to my app logo component. I'm just going to add a space like this. I will turn this into a link. I just want this to navigate to the home page if I click on it. So I'm just going to use the Next.js link around this. I can just import link from Next.js and then put the closing tag here and href. This is going to be slash, which means go to the home page. And when I put my cursor on it, you notice that it is now a link. You can see that down here if I put my cursor on it. Yep. So this is now going to navigate home. So our logo is done. I am going to create our navigation menus. So inside SRC, I'm going to create another file. I'm going to call it helpers.ts. This is just going to contain some exports for some constants I'm going to be creating, some functions, some helper functions I'm going to be creating later. So I want to use this to export like the nav items I want to use. So I'm going to say export constant, and I'll call this nav items, which is going to be a list with a type. So I'm going to define that later, but it's going to be an array. And the type I will call it nav item. That is because it is going to contain a label and an href. So the label is going to be what is going to show, and then the href is going to be the link to navigate to, basically. So that's what I'm going to have here. I'm going to have a label. For example, this is going to be all products, and then I call it href. And then this is going to navigate to slash products. I have two two of them, so I'm going to have the second one. So the reason why I'm creating it like this, so later if I want to add more navigations, I'll just come here and then add them here, and that will basically be it. It's going to work. So this one is going to be categories. I'm just going to go to /categories, and I need to create the type. I am also going to add another file here called model.ts. So this is going to contain all my type definitions, and the first one I'm going to have is this one, nav item with label and href. So I now need to import that from model. So I have my nav items list here. I am going to close that. When I come here where I have nav items, I can now do a map and then render all my nav items as a link. So I'm going to say nav items, which is going to be imported from source and then helpers map. So it is going to be nav item, to make sure I am providing the key, which is basically going to be nav item dot label. I don't want to use the href as a key because we can have different nav items navigating to that same page. So to be on the safer side, I know the labels are going to be different. I'll put a link here, which is going to be from next link. Now I would add the href, which is basically going to be nav item dot href, and here is going to be nav item dot label. So this is going to be my nav items. When I come here, yep, there you go. So I will get rid of the box around it, and I save it as should. Yeah, so there you go. So if I put a case on it, c/product/categories, and I can add more navigation items here. We are going to create our search field next. When we check here, this is our search field. When you click on it, you have this drop down. This is more like a custom search field I created. It works like a type ahead. So as you type, for example, like men, you get the data, like you get product. So it makes a request, fetches the product based on the name of the product, and then yeah, you can choose from the product here, right? So we are going to build the search field, just a component. We would add the implementation to make the request and show it in the drop down a bit later, but yeah, we just want to add these elements there. So I will open Chakra UI again. I'll go to components, going to look for inputs. Alright, so this is what I'm looking for. So I have input. I'll scroll down, yes. So this is an example of the input I want, right? So they have this input group with input left elements, and then the actual input is basically here. So I'm going to copy this, I'm going to hide it, and I'm going to create the search component. So inside component, I'm going to add I'm going to add it as a folder. So inside components, I will create a new folder. I'll call it search. Call it search. And inside it, I'm going to add the search.tsx file. I'm also going to add the style. It's going to be style.ts. And here I'm going to generate it using RFC. So hit enter. I have my search component. Alright, so I'm going to paste what I copied here. I want to first of all just wrap it in a box. So copy the closing tag and put it down here. And let me try to import all the things I need. Add import from Chakra UI. Going to go to add or missing import as well. to fix all these. I'm not going to use a font icon. I'm going to rather use a search icon. That's the name of the component. And mine is rather going to be a bit deeper, grade 400. I need to import this. So I'm basically going to import this from Chakra icons, and I just remembered I've not installed that. Yeah, even though I have React icons installed, I can just use an icon from React icons, but yeah, I'm not going to have access to this color grade 400 because this is a Chakra UI kind of property. So I am going to install this as well, just to give me like multiple options. I will open the other terminal again. I will do npm install this Chakra icons. That is done installing, so this should be resolved now. So this is saying do not pass children as props. Instead, nest children between the opening and closing tags. Okay, so this is more like an ESLint error. So I'm just going to fix this by disabling this for this line. Yeah, just to have it like this, because I can't actually put it here because this is already here. I want to add it as a child using the children props. So yeah, I will disable the ESLint check for this line. So basically the type is going to be a text, and the placeholder is going to be such with this. So if I try to save it and I check it again, actually I can't see it yet because I've not imported the search component here, so it's just using the placeholder still. So let me just use the search component I just created, and that is from search. So import that and then save this now, and when I check again after it refreshes, yeah, I should see my component here, right? So, yeah, with the search icon here. I'm going to add some more styles to make it look like this. So if I go back to search, I'm going to add a size here. So the size is going to be small for the input group, and on this I'm going to add focus border color, which is going to be brand dot primary light. I will add the border when I focus, so border width. Border width is going to be 1 pixel, and then the border color is going to be grade 400. So these props are becoming a lot, so I'll move it into styles, cut this, come to styles and do export constant search input styles, which is going to be an input props. Basically import that from Chakra. I'm going to paste this here. I'm going to replace all the equal to sign. I'm going to replace all the equal to sign with colon, and I'm going to now add commas in between them. This and that. Yeah, the comma here. Save this. I can copy this, bring that here, spread it on the input, make sure I import it from styles, and that should be it. So if I try to check it out again, it should look similar to that. Yes, and it does look similar to this. So the only thing is the length, right? And with that, we are going to add a width. There is this error in the console which is saying /categories. Yeah, we've actually added a link which is pointing to /categories, but we've not actually created a page yet. That's why we have this error. But yeah, it should go away very shortly when we add the categories page. I'm going to clear that. Go back here. I am going to add a width. The width is going to be 32 rem, like this. Now if I save it, it should be much larger, as you can see. So because we are going to use the same search field on mobile screen, we want to make sure that on mobile screen the search field is going to appear down below the actual navigation bar. So on mobile screen we want the width to be 100%, so that whatever is the size of the mobile screen, it is going to like fill the whole space, right? We don't want 32 rems on mobile screen because that might be bigger on some mobile screens. We want to now see how we can use Chakra UI to make this search field responsive on different devices. So let me show you how to do that. So here we can actually add an object here. So it's supposed to be a JavaScript and it accepts an object. Chakra UI supports mobile first design. So when you do base basically means everything from smaller kind of screens app. You should use this width, and you can have sizes like medium, you can have large, for example, you can have extra large, you can have XXL. You get a point, right? Yeah, so extra small and then small as well, right? So base is actually anything before this. So if you don't specify this, for example, if I specify base and I say 100%, and then on large screens it's supposed to be 32 rem, I'm basically saying that from a base device up until large, just apply this width of 100%, and when you get to large, just use 32 rems, right? So it is as easy as that with Chakra UI. So this is what we are going to be using. We just want to use 100% for smaller devices, and then on large screens we want to apply the 32 rems. You get it? If I save it, we should not see any changes on large screen. If I add the mobile navigation, you would see how it will fill the space we give it, 100% of the space we give it, right? Alright, so that is looking good. If I click inside, it has the highlight of our primary light color, so that is our brown color. So this is working just like this. We are going to leave these placeholders here for now. We would add the components a bit later, but we want to add the mobile navigation as well. Basically, because we have all these as components, we just add the mobile navigation component, and then we can reuse these search and these logos, search, and yeah, these as well. So in our Navbar, we created the mobile nav component, which contains nothing at the moment. So I'm just going to generate the component like this, and then we are going to start adding some content here. I'm going to be using this website called Responsinator to check my mobile version of the application. So when you go to responsinator.com, you can actually enter the URL, which is localhost 3000. So you go here, you enter localhost 3000, and it's going to give you different screen devices. For example, this, right? So you can test your application on multiple devices to see it looks good on all devices, right? So I'm going to use this to monitor, to check the mobile version of my app, just to see that it looks okay on mobile versions as well, right? So I will open this one and leave this one here as well. Alright, so we are going to build the mobile version. So yeah, we should at the end of the day we should replace this with a mobile version, right? I've also opened the mobile version of the finished app here as well, so that we can use this one to compare what we have here whilst we are using this to compare this, right? I would have these 4 tabs open all the time, so yeah. So this is how it looks like on mobile version, right? So we have a button here which contains this hamburger icon, and then shows this sidebar, which is basically a drawer, and then the logo appears here, and then we have the wish list and then the cart, and then the search input also appears below it. So that is what we are going to be doing. So let's check it from here. So we would add a flex component first of all, and we should import that from Chakra. Let me just put a box here to replace it. So this is going to contain the hamburger button. So this is this will contain the nav menu actually, and here we would have the app logo, which we've created a component already, so we would just import it. We would after the app logo we have our wish list and cart, right? So I'll put that in a stack. We don't have the component yet, so we would put a placeholder here. So we'll put it in a text. So this is wish list, and then we have another one for cart. Then let's add some styles to this flex box, right? So I'm going to put that in style.tsx. Actually this is not a component, so I'll just rename this back to style.ts, just exporting some constants. And I am going to export another constant, so export constant, and this is going to be the mobile nav container style, which is basically flex props. I'm just going to say justify, which is going to be space between align center, padding X is going to be 2 rem, and I would add padding Y as well. This will be 1 rem. Now this should also have border bottom, just like we have for the desktop one, and that is 1 pixel. We have border color, same as the desktop one, which is gray 200. Alright, should be here. Messing up there. Then comma. Yeah, so this looks okay now. I can save it, copy styles, come here, and then come and spread it here. And I have to import this, save it, cool. And for the stack, I need to give it a direction, because by default the direction is actually a column, so I need to say it should be row, and then I need to add some spacing as well. So spacing, I'll add just 1. This is actually the nav bar with a border below. So after that, that is where we put the search, right? So I'm just going to wrap this in a fragment, put a closing braces here, and here I'm going to add a wrapper around the search, simple, and I will import the search component here. Import that, save it, and the reason why I added a box around it is I want to give some spacing around the search box, right? So I would just say padding X is going to be 2 rem, and then give some padding Y as well. It should be small, 0.5 rem, and yeah, just give it a margin below, which is 1 rem. So where I have my navbar, I am going to import mobile nav here as well. So now, how do we hide and show the desktop nav? and the mobile nav when we are on desktop and mobile respectively. We can now go to the desktop navigation component, and here where we have the desktop nav styles, we can add some display, right? So we would say display, and we can do an object just like we said. So on base devices, we don't want to show the desktop one, so it's going to be none. And then on large devices, this is supposed to be a flexbox container, so on large devices we would say display flex. I'm going to copy this, do the same thing for the mobile nav as well, add the display to it, but this time we want to display the flex on mobile device and then do none for large devices, so that on mobile devices it's going to show, and on large devices it is not going to show. I'll copy this again because we added the sets down here. I need to make sure I do the same thing for this as well, but this time it's supposed to be equal to. So I will just move this now to the styles because this is becoming longer. So I will just delete this, come to the styles, export counts, mobile, search wrapper, and then I'm going to spread out here, and then make sure I am importing this as well. So I have some errors because I changed the style.tsx to style.ts now, so I basically need to restart the dev server. So I am going to try and do npm run dev again. I should be able to refresh this, and I should be able to refresh this as well. Alright, so the app is now running fine. If I check here too, it looks fine. So yeah, there is the nav menu here, there is ms buy, there is wishlist and cut. Yeah, some of our styles are broken. We don't have the correct length, as well as there is no space at the top here. So yeah, let's check what styles we are missing. Okay, so the padding Y is supposed to be 0.5 rem. Actually, I need to make sure this is a display of block, so this should fix it. Yeah, and there you go. So we have some space here, we have this and this here, and then when you go to the large screen, we also have it like this, right? Our navigation bar is working perfectly on both desktop and mobile devices. So we're going to continue to build this part next. Alright, so we are now going to work on actual components on our home screen. So the first thing we are going to do, that is because this navigation is going to appear on all the screens, so this is not actually on only the home screen. Yeah, so when we're talking about the actual components that are going to be on our home screen, yeah, this banner section is going to be on only the home screen, right? And the way I like to structure my folder for this is by creating features folder, and then like putting different components that are going to be on only different sections. So yeah, let me show you how I'm going to structure my folder for this one. I'm going to create another folder. I'm going to put some of these, going to collapse these all, and inside SRC I'm going to create a new folder called features. Right, so features are basically different parts of the application that are more like different features. So yeah, basically I have the home as a feature of the application, so that is a home screen. So inside features I'm going to create another folder called home. So this is going to be the home feature, the home page feature, and here is where I'm going to have like all the components that are going to go on only the home page, right? So if I have a global component, it is going to go into the components folder. If I have like a local component which are going to be on only a particular feature, for example the home page, I will put it in the folder for that. So inside the features, I would have the home page, and inside here I would add my components. So the first one is going to be banner.tsx, and I'm going to do rafc to generate the banner, and I will be importing this in the pages. So from the working application, there are two sections, right? So there is a flex container, and there's two containers inside them, which each of them is occupying 50% of the page. So you can see the components are somehow equal. So yeah, that's what we are going to do. So here I'm going to add a flex component from Chakra, and then inside it I'm going to have two boxes, right? These are going to be the two boxes. This is going to be the first section. So first section, this is going to be the second section, and I need to import this. Alright, so here if I try to import the banner on my home page, and I come to up, and then I come to my home page, instead of hello next, which we can't see because it is under this, I'm going to import banner here, right? So it's a component, try to import that prefix, and I'm going to import it from src features home banner. Save this, and this is going to create two sections. It is actually going to be here, but I can't see it because this is actually covering it because of the display we have for it. As you can see, it is giving us some errors as well because we are importing a client's component inside the server component. So what we have to do to fix this is when we go to banner component, we only have to add the use client here. So when we add it here, this is still a server component, but our banner is actually a client component, and we can now do these imports. So save this, and we should see that error gone. Once it refreshes, we should see this error gone. And yeah, the error is gone. Alright, so let's make our component appear so that we can actually see what we are doing. We have a position fixed for this, so we need to give it a wrapper, some kind of a wrapper, to make sure like all components we are going to put after that will be displaying, right? So let me show you how we are going to do that. So we will go to components, nav, and that is going to be here. So you saw that here for the navbar we put position fixed here, right? We need to make sure we're giving it some kind of a wrapper so that our component is going to display. So we go here, and then we would wrap a box around this, and this is going to be the navbar wrapper. So we would give it a height, and I would say 120 pixels. This is going to make sure that our component shows here. I mean, this space, it looks like there is a lot of space here. It's still fine because I mean, when you have a look, you can't actually see it is a bigger space. It's just a white space. On mobile screen too, we won't have that problem because on mobile screen it looks okay as well. So we would add a height of 120 pixels here. And just for readability, we are not actually going to use this class name, right? But we just want to add this class name and just say navbar wrapper, just to make sure like this is actually the navigation bar wrapper. So this is acting as a kind of a label, but we are not actually using the class name. Alright, so that looks okay now. Can focus on creating this banner component. Alright, so in our banner, we would, because it is a flex component, we would say justify, and I will put center here. Same with align. It's going to be center. I'm going to put a gap, and it will be 2, and I'll do flex direction. That's because I will change the direction on mobile and desktop screens. So the flex direction on mobile screens or on smaller devices using the base, it is going to be column. So that way it is going to be from top to down. So it's going to put a text on top and put an image below it. And then on large screens, it is going to be row. So that's it. We'll put it side by side. I'll write these things here just for you to understand that these are props for the component we have here for the flex component. But after that, I'm going to move this into like a separate style. So yeah, just don't want you to get confused with the styles I am writing in the styles.ts file. I have a width, and I'm also going to change the width based on the device we are on. So on smaller devices, it is actually going to be 100%. And on large devices, I'm going to make it 90%. And because it is going to be 90% on large devices, I need to make sure that I'm doing a margin X of auto just to make sure it centers it. And I'm also going to add a padding for the container. So padding of 2 rem like this. And I'm going to move this inside home. I'm going to have a style.ts, and I'm going to say constant. This is going to be banner styles. So flex props like this, paste this, save this, and then I need to make sure I am exporting so that I can import it there. Save that, and then do dot, and then import this from style. So let's save it, and then we should see that this is looking fine on mobile screen, and it is also looking fine on desktop screen, right? So we have it side by side on desktop screen, and then on the mobile version we have it up and down. So let's now replace this with the actual content. Alright, so the first content is going to contain a heading. So import that from Chakra UI. So this heading is more like an H1, H2, H3 text. So basically, online shopping made easy. So I put a break here just to make sure I am breaking the text. And then this one is a description. So I would also import that component. And I'm going to move these to style. So constant banner heading styles, which is going to be heading props, just like that. And going to replace this with this, with that here, another one here. Alright, it's not needed, but yeah, let's put it there, and then change these, and then let's save it. Banner heading styles, import that, dot, and put in a curly brace, dot, this, and then I am going to move these styles. Got it? Yeah, I need to make sure I am exporting this as well. Export constant banner description styles. So let me just say banner text styles. It is going to be text props. I'm going to put this First of all, replace this, change this to an object because this is already JavaScript. Add comments in between, and this should be fine. Copy this, and let's replace this as well. And now we can import this. Import this as well. Try to save it, and yeah, should be good. Alright, yeah, so we have online shopping made easy, and then the description is also here. Alright, so basically what we added a size, and then we made sure the base is extra large, and then on large screens it is 3XL for sizes. So Chakra UI also have like XL, 3XL, 2XL, SM, small, extra small for like font sizes as well, right? And then the color is brand primary, and then here we are doing the same thing, but this time for the text. So on base it's going to be medium, and then on large screen it's going to be LG. And we added some padding and then some max width 600 pixels just to make sure like it is occupying like a decent amount of space without having to like go overboard. I mean, if the screen is very wide, we don't want it to like just go all the way wider. We just want to give it a maximum width, right? Alright, so this one is looking good. We need to add the image. So first of all, if you go to banner, we need to make sure we are specifying the width for these two boxes as well, right? So here on base devices, it is going to be 100%, and then on large devices, which is going to put it side by side, it is going to be 50%, right? And it's going to be the same for the second box. So this is basically going to say like on smaller devices, just make it wider, fill the whole container. But on large devices, just take 50% of the parent component, and then the other part should also take 50%. Right? So when I save it, we would now see that yeah, this is gone to the side, and then the 50% is reserved for the second section. So for the second section, which is going to contain the image, it's just going to be a box. So here, I'm going to put a box here. And I am using the image as the background, as a background image, instead of like putting it in an actual image, just to make sure like it covers the entire container. I would say just to make sure it covers the width and height of the entire container I give it. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to give it a bit of a margin so it doesn't go very close to the edges. And I'm going to specify some width and height for this box on different devices. So width on base device, it is going to be 300 pixels. That is on smaller device. I just want it to be 300 pixels. And then on large devices, it should just be twice that, so 600 pixels. And I will do the same thing for the height. So it's going to be 300 pixels on smaller devices, 500 pixels on larger devices. And this is where I'm going to add the background image. I added this image. It is called mockup.svg. That's what I'm going to use. That's the image we use for that. With the background, I'm going to use an image URL. So I'm going to put the image properties together. So I want it to be center, and I want it to cover the container. I also don't want it to repeat, so I would say no repeat, and then I would now specify the URL, which is basically going to be mockup.svg, like this. That's because it is directly in the public folder. So when I save this and I check it, yeah, there you go, we have the image showing here. And if I check the mobile version, yeah, the mobile version is also looking good. There was a button I added here which is saying shop now, as you can see here, and when I hover on it, it is pointing to like products/products. So let me add that button as well. So the button is going to be under the text. I would have a button. Actually, I'm gonna say rounded is full, and then I'll add a minimum width that is going to be 10 rem, and then I would add a BG color like this, and it's going to be brand.primary, and then the color is going to be white. Now on hover, I want the BG color to deepen a little bit, so I'm going to use the primary dark color for my brand. So brand.primary dark, like this, and yeah, get rid of this comma. Inside the button, I am going to say shop now, and I'm going to put a link around this to route to /products. So a link from next link, and this is going to say href/products. All right, so this should, after this refreshes, this should now look good. So you see it is routing to /products, and I should see it on the mobile version as well. Yeah, /product. Alright, so this is looking good. This is looking really good. We have our banner section done. We are going to go ahead and build the top category section next. Alright, so we are going to build the top category section here, but I've done a few cleanup I want to show you before we build this section. So basically I had the styles defined here, but I've just moved them to the style.ts file. So I have the banner btn styles. I also have the banner image box styles, and I also noticed that instead of margin Y, I did margin X. So I've changed that quickly. I've changed that as well, just to give some kind of spacing on the mobile view like this, right? Yeah, so this one was very close to the button initially. Alright, so those are the cleanups I've done. We are going to go ahead and build the top category section. So with that, I'm going to close this one, close this, going to collapse a few of these, and here I am going to add a new file, and this is going to be top categories. Top categories.tsx, and inside top categories I'm going to first of all generate this. I'm going to put a container, a box here, and this is going to be my top categories component. So before I add that component, before I add a content in the component, I want to import it and start using it. So I will I will open the page, and then here is where I am going to be using my top categories component like this. Alright, so later when I make a fetch to fetch the categories items, the top categories items, I'm going to pass it up as props. But for now, there is no props. This is receiving, so I'll just leave it like this. So let's actually add the content. So inside here, I'm going to have a heading. So basically, this heading is going to be the heading I'm going to use for all the featured items as well. So I'll create that as a component, a very simple component. So when I come to components, I'm going to create a section heading.tsx, and then I'm going to generate that. And here, the only thing I'm going to add is heading from Chakra UI, and inside here, I'm going to add a title, which is going to come as a prop. I'm destructuring the prop, and I'm going to define the interface for that. Section heading props, and it's going to have the title, which is going to be a string. Like this, string. I'm going to type it here. Alright, so this is going to receive the title as a prop wherever I use the section heading, and it is going to pass the title here. Right? So I'm going to pass the size of the heading. It's going to be, let me just make it a string, MD, and then I would also add a margin, which is going to be 1.5 rem. So that's all what our section heading component is going to do. So that's the first I'm going to use for our top category. So I'm going to do section heading, and I have to make sure I pass the title as it is expecting, and it is going to say shop our top categories. Save this, and this is complaining about use client. So what I have to do is add the use client, because I'm using it in a server component. So I have to make sure this is also a client component. So save this one, and hopefully it should compile successfully. Yep, there you go. If I come here, shop our top category not show, so let me fix that. They're supposed to be shop. Alright, so that is showing, and this is very close to the edges, so I want to give the parent container some styles. So just like how I style my containers, I am going to give it a responsive width. So basically, when it is on smaller devices, I want to make it 100%, but when it is on large devices, I want to make it 90%. And because it is going to be 90% on large devices, I just have to make sure the margin X is auto, so that it will center it. And then I'll add some patterns too at the top and down. So the top and down is going to be a bit bigger than the left and right, which is going to be 2 rem as well. This is actually padding, not margin, because the margin X is already here. This is now in the middle, so our heading is perfectly placed now. I am going to display these top categories as a grid instead of a flex. So this time I'm going to use grid, and this is coming from Chakra, and inside it I am going to put in some grid items. Right? So I am going to import the grid item component as well, and there is an image. So if I go here again, there is the image, and then there is the name of the category. So that's what I'm going to have. So here there's going to be the image, there's going to be the text. This is supposed to lie side by side, and it is the same thing I'm going to use for like all the other cards, all the other categories cards. So what I would like to do is to create a top category card down here. I can move it into a separate file, but yeah, I am going to create it down here. So I'll say constant top category card. This is basically going to return a card. So card is coming from Chakra, as you can see here. And with card, I am going to put this inside a card. So it's going to have an image, and then the text. I can add the direction. A card basically acts as a flex container as well. So the direction, I would say row align, which is going to be center. Just going to say overflow. This one is going to be hidden. I'm going to add a variant, so card can receive a variant. This time I want to make it an outline card, and then the width is basically going to be 100%, and the height as well, padding 10 pixels. I am going to have the image here. I'm going to put the text, which is the name of the category, in a card body. So a card can have a header and then a body. In this case, I am going to put the text in the body, just like this. I'm actually going to change this to a heading, and I'm going to say maybe watches for this one, and I will import headings here. So SFC Auth, let me just add these two, and yeah, just have to make sure I save it. But with this one, the size based on whichever device it is on, I'm going to say the base size is going to be small, and the large devices I'm going to make a medium. I am going to use the top category card here. This is a component, and for now I am not fetching any category, so I'm just going to leave it here like this. I'll copy it a few more times and save it. So 1 2 3 4, and then with this grid I am going to also make it responsive based on the screen sizes as well. So with grid you can actually add the template columns. The columns are, the horizontal, and then the rows are the vertical ones. So grid template columns, I am going to do repeat 1 fr for base. So it's going to be 1 card per column on smaller devices. So on large devices it is going to be 4 columns, 1 fractional unit for each, so it's going to be 4. I want to actually add a medium for this one. So on medium devices, so before you get to large, I want to make it 2. So basically I have it like this. Let me actually see what is wrong here. It looks like I have to specify some sizes, and why are these here? Alright, okay, so the first thing, I think because I was doing copy and pasting, I just pasted some of these grid items into others. So I just move this one up. I'll move this one out as well. Yeah, so now there should be 4 columns now, and yeah, that looks perfect. Alright, so I want to use this image placeholder, so I'm going to just say product1.jpg, which is basically one of the products, one of the images I added in public. If I show that to you, yeah, this is how it looks like, but yeah, it is very big. So I want to make that smaller, so I'm just going to specify some width and height for the image width 100 and then height 100. I'm going to save this, wait for this to refresh, and that looks perfect. Now you notice that here I have a hover effect as well for these cards, so I want to add the same thing as well as the cursor pointer underscore hover. That's how we do it in Chakra. We want to say cursor is equal to pointer, and then bg color is going to be gray dot 100. I missed a comma here, and yeah, I'm going to clean this up a bit by moving them into the style.ts file. This one, because I added the medium, I will change this to extra large, so base medium, and then on extra large screen. So on large screens I still want to have it as 2 columns. So save this, and yeah, that is working now. Alright, so I have a placeholder there. We will do the data fetching from Sanity a bit later and replace that, but our component is working. So the next thing we are going to do is we are going to build these sliders for our best deals, our most selling products, and our trending products. The only thing we're going to build is this card, and we are also going to build the swiper slider with these custom navigation buttons, and that is basically going to be the same thing for the rest of the sections. So we are going to create these sliders, and the first thing I'm going to create is the product card. So this is basically a component we are reusing for all of them. So I'll first of all create the product card. Inside components, I'm going to add a new file. I will call it product card.tsx. Inside here, I'm going to use a card. If I try to look at a card component from Chakra UI, so here I can just copy this code, paste that here, and then make sure I am importing all the important stuff. I am going to import the image. Those are imported. So there is card body, and there is also the card footer. I am going to get rid of this card footer because I want to be using that. Going to actually give it a width. I want it to be extra small. That's the size of the card I want to use. I'm going to add a position relative, and the reason why I'm adding position relative is because of this. It's because of this hat icon here. I'm going to position add to wish list button absolute. So I will leave the position relative here for now. I want to add some margin 0.5 rem. Inside the card body, I am going to have the image, and then we have the content for the image. So inside the contents, the first thing I want to have, if I check, the name and then the price. So these are lined side by side, right? So I'm going to use a flex component to do that. So here I'm going to put a flex component here, And here I'm going to do justify and then space between. I'll align it to the center. Alright, then when I open, I'm going to first of all have the heading. I will also have the price, right? It's basically going to say price. So for example, I can just do $100. Now if you look at this one, the dollar symbol is small, and then the actual price number is a bit bigger. So I'm going to create two text components. I'm going to use two text components for this one. So for example, this is going to be $100. Now the font size for this is going to be small and the other one is going to be large, right? So font size SM meaning small, font size, and then large. And I want to wrap this in flex so that will lie side by side. Move this down. Save this, and then on the flex I will add the color for my price, and it is going to be brand dot primary dark, and I will also make them bold. Font weight is going to be bold. So I am going to go to home. I'm going to add a new file. I'm going to call it featured products.tsx, and then I'm going to generate that component, and for now I am just going to add a single product card here just to see it working. So save this, and then I am going to import that here. Make sure I import that from features home to categories. If I check it out here, try to refresh. Yeah, I need to mark it as use client. I always forget these. Featured products. I need to say this is use client. Save this, and now the error should go away. I have my card here with this image and then the text and then the price. We now need some part of the description showing here, and then the rating icons, and then add to cart button. So let's add those. So I'll just open this again. I'll get rid of the price from here, and here the text is going to contain a description, so just going to leave a bit of the description here. Rating component. Alright, so this is going to contain a rating component which I am going to create. So inside component, I'm going to add a new file and say rating.tsx. So RFC, I will use flex here. Right. And I am going to use React stars. So I'm going to say import React stars, and it's going to be imported from React stars, and that's the component I'm going to actually use here. So React stars is going to accept some props. That is a count. The count is all the time going to be 5 stars, and then we would also need a value. So the value is the actual value for your rating. So for example, if I have 4 out of 5 stars, I'm going to put 4 here, and I would say half true. So this half true is basically saying should the component use half stars. If not, the decimal part will be dropped. So for example, if I have 3.5, this is basically going to have like a half star for the 4th star, right? We want to also give it a size. We want to make it a bit smaller, so the size is going to be 18. That's the size I found to be okay. And then color, I want to use my brand colors, and you notice that I exported the colors as well. So yeah, this is not a Chakra component, a Chakra UI component, so I can't just use brand dots. So I have to use colors, which is coming from theme, as you can see here. Dots, brand, and then dots, my primary color, right? And I want to say edit as false. So I want it to be read only. You don't have to be able to edit that. So for some reason the color is not working. It is actually called color 2. So there is color 1 and color 2. I think color 1 is for the outline, when there is actually no fill. Yeah, for this gray one, so by default it is gray, and color 2 is for the fill, right? The only thing I need is color 2, because I'll just leave it as gray if there is no fill. But here I would also add a text for the count, and it's going to be in brackets, and it's basically going to be a number. So for example, I'll just put a placeholder here, 200. So now if I import the rating from rating and save it, I should see it, and there you go. So our rating is showing up, and you can see this is a half star because I have 3.5, right? That is what a half star is doing. Alright, so let me check my mobile version as well. Looks like mobile version is also looking cool. Alright, so that is working fine. Mobile version is also looking fine. Let's go back to product card here. The next thing I'm going to add here is the button to add to carts, right? And I'm going to make that as a component as well, because I'm going to use it in other places. That is on the product details product details page as well. So I am going to call it add to cart button, and I need to create this inside components, new file, add to cart button.tsx, generate that. Going to have a simple button here, which is going to say add to cart. So for now it's going to be this simple button. Variant is going to be an outline, and then I would add a border color. Border color is going to be brand.primary, and then the color is also going to be brand.primary. I'm going to add border radius. Instead of border radius, I would rather say rounded. Full, and then size is equal to SM, which is small. Width, just give it a fixed width. There is 150 pixels, and that should be it. So I'm going to save it, add to cart button. That's what this is going to do. Later we are going to add the remove from cart button here so that it will switch. If it is added to cart, it is going to say remove from cart, but yeah, for now it's going to be the simple button, and we can import that here. So let's save this one. There's some components imports I'm not using, so I'm going to hit Ctrl-Alt-O to just format this and get rid of all the unused imports. So that's a shortcut to do that. Try to check this. Alright, so our card is ready. We are later going to add a helper function to trim the description text and add the ... If, for example, we have a very long description text. But for now, yeah, we are just having everything as placeholder just for this to be easy. When we try to fetch actual data, we would format this later. So if I come back to featured product here, this is where I am going to add the slider, and I'm going to use Swiper.js, right? First of all, I am going to import Swiper. Import that from Swiper. I would also import Swiper slide like this. Actually, this is supposed to come from Swiper React, and that is where this is going to come from as well. Here is where we are going to add the product card, so we can add multiple of these. So save this. On top here, we are going to define the settings for Swiper. So constant slider settings. So the type is Swiper options, and the first thing is we define modules, which is supposed to be an array. So all the modules we want to use, for example, like navigation, we want to use autoplay. Want to use autoplay in navigation. We have to make sure we are importing these as well. So these are going to be imported from Swiper itself. So that's imported here. Now I'll add space. That should be a comma. Space between. So what should be the space between slides? That's going to be 10. And I also want to say slides per view. How many slides per view do we want to have? I would make it auto. So depending on the size of the parent container, it should be auto. So if it is smaller and 2, based on the size of the cards, 2 slides can fit in, you should use 2 slides. If 4 slides can fit in, you should use 4 slides. So yeah, that makes it responsive. And we are going to also do autoplay. So we want the speed to be 1 second. Add a comma here. We will specify autoplay, and then what should be the delay? I say 5 seconds. So when it slides, it will delay 5 seconds before it slides again. And I think that's a decent amount of time. There's a property I need to specify here as well. Disable on interaction. I need to set it to false so that when you click on it, when you put your mouse on it, it's not going to stop it from autoplaying. These are the settings I'm going to add. So after adding this, I need to make sure I add it here. I'm going to basically spread that. And I'm going to add some few inline styling for this. So style, width, I just want to say 100%, and then height 100%. And I'm also going to add some slide styles for these Swiper slides. So I'm going to add that at the top here. So I'm calling it slide styles. And this is normal CSS properties. So I will import that from React. And I'm saying box size and border box and max width 350 pixels. Right? That should be a maximum width for a slide. Alright, so this is what I need to add for these ones. I'm going to say style and add this. So if I save it, it refreshed, and yeah, I mean all my cards are appearing here, but you see the slider is not applied yet. That's because I've not added the CSS file for Swiper. So what I'm going to do is, so here I'm going to add an import for the Swiper CSS. I'll add it at the top here. So let me save that, and hopefully you see my slider is actually working. So I have 5 items, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 5 items here. I'll try to make this smaller. You can see I can actually click and drag and slide through them. Very cool. You see the autoplay is also working. Right, it does autoplay by itself, which is very cool. Alright, so the next thing is to add the navigation button below, which is very easy to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create this Swiper nav buttons. I'm going to add 2 buttons. One is going to be next and one is going to be previous. They are going to have just the arrow icons on them. So that's basically what I've done here. I've just added this component called Swiper nav buttons, and I've added 2 buttons. So they are basically an icon buttons from Chakra UI, and this one is a previous, this one is next. Nothing more here. So these are just the styles I am applying for the buttons. So border color primary, border width, and then the color is also primary dark, BG color is white, and then the rest are, I'm just using the chevron for the icon, and I'm also making it rounded. Right? Alright, so how do we tell Swiper to go to the next slide or the previous slide when these buttons are clicked? We are going to use a hook called use Swiper from Swiper React to do that. So we will import use Swiper from Swiper React, and basically in our component we just create an instance of that and assign it to use Swiper hook like this, and now we can have some methods on the Swiper instance, slide previous and slide next methods. So we do Swiper dots, and we can see a bunch of methods and properties on this, but the one we want is slide previous, which is this one. It's a method, so we need to call that. So I've already added the on-click events. They are not doing anything, so I'm just adding this slider.slide previous here. I'm going to copy this and add it here, but this time it is going to be slide next. But how does this knows the Swiper instance to use? So we would basically go to featured product, and here where we have Swiper, we basically have to use it as a child of this Swiper component, right? If I use it anywhere, it is not going to work. So you have to make sure you are using it as a child of the Swiper component. So I'm adding it here, and I will import that. I'm going to save this when I check. Alright, so after it refreshes, when I check, I see the buttons. Alright, so I click on this and they are basically working fine. Click on it, goes next. I click on it, goes next. Previous, next, previous, right? So we are basically going to reuse this featured product for all the other products. And how we are going to make it flexible together with the titles is we are going to pass the titles as props, and we are also going to pass the products list to the component so that it will render whichever products list we give it, right? So here for now, the only thing I'm going to add is the title. Alright, so I'm going to say interface, and I'm going to call it featured product props. It's going to have a title which is going to be a string, and then before the slider, before the Swiper, I'm going to use the component I created, which is section heading here, and the only thing section heading needs is the title, which is basically going to be the title we pass to this component. Alright, so it's going to be title, and it's gonna come from here. And we pass that to section heading, and everything should look fine. So when we save it, this also means we need to pass a title here. So the first one is best deals for you. Let's copy this 2 more times. This is going to be most selling products, and then this is trending products. Alright, so if we try to check these, if I scroll down, yeah, we have these other featured products also showing up here. So best deals, most selling products, and then we also have trending products. So yeah, these are very close to the edges, so I'm just going to use the same sizes, approach I used for these and this for the container, wrapping these as well. Going to go into featured product container. Instead of a fragment, I will basically put a box here. That will be the wrapper, and I will say width and base is going to be 100%. LG is going to be 90%. It also means I have to do margin X auto and then pattern to rem. So save this, and alright, so yeah, this looks like this now. So yeah, there's a lot of good spacing around these now, and you notice that if I try to shrink it, because we set the slides per view to auto, it actually adapts to the width of the container it is in, right? So this is going to look good on all devices. If I try to check what we have here, if I try to check here, it looks good. Here, all. If I try to check for these other devices as well, so one, and then some part of this. So yeah, this is going to look good on all devices. If I try to check on a bigger device, yeah, we have 2 here, we have 3 here. Yeah, so this is looking good. Yeah, our home section is almost done. We are going to build our footer next. So the footer component is not actually going to do much. Just put it there, just because yeah, it's supposed to be there. But yeah, it's not going to do a lot. So I'm just going to put a footer component in, and then I will show you what is happening inside it. I have the footer component added here, and these are just some components I am reusing. That's why I am separating these. So I have social button for all my social media buttons, but they are basically receiving children, which I am passing here, and then label, and then the href, right? So the href is basically the link, and then the label is actually the label I am using for accessibility sake. List header, I am also using a list header for all these different sessions, so I separated that one as well, but it's basically receiving children, rendering them here, font weight, font size, and then just a margin bottom. So when I come here, I'm using a simple grid. So there is a simple grid component from Chakra UI. It's basically when you want to have a simple layout, a simple grid layout, you can use this simple grid component. So I have 4 sections in this grid: this one, this one, this one, then this one, right? So 4 sections, as you can see from our finished application. So we have this, and that, and these are the headings, right? So that is basically what I have added, and I've added these as links. This is the social icons, and this is app logo, which we've already created. I'm just importing that component. So as you can see, the first section, I import app logo and then the copyright information, and then in here the second one, just using the list header with some links below it, and it's the same thing for the other sides as well. And then on last section, I'm using the list header, I'm using some input for email subscription, and I'm also using some icon for the button. It's a very simple footer, nothing fancy going on here. Yeah, this is how the footer is going to be like. Now once I create the footer, I go to app and I go to layout, and this is why I added the navbar. So at the bottom, this is basically going to appear for all our components. So I will add footer here, and then I'm going to save this. So if I go back and I wait for this to refresh itself. Alright, so once this refreshes, yeah, we have our footer down here, right? So yeah, our UI layout is coming together. We have the homepage basically done. We just need to fill it with an actual data.